Hi, futurist Jim Carroll from my virtual broadcast studio, and welcome to Elevate 2021, where over the next several days, you are going to cover a tremendous number of the trends, insights, and opportunities that come to your world of construction project management. A little bit about me. Look, pre-COVID, I would spend time on glorious stages in Las Vegas talking to thousands of folks in virtually every single industry about trends, about the future, about innovation, about opportunity. And then, of course, COVID hit. What I did was I built this virtual broadcast studio where I am speaking to you now from a world of green screen technology with a whole bunch of lights, a whole bunch of cameras, where I can continue to share my insight with individuals around the world. And what I'm going to do with you over the next few minutes is help you understand what were we dealing with in the world of construction before COVID hit. How did COVID change our universe and accelerate the trends that we're having to deal with, and a little bit of a glimpse into what comes next and what you need to do about it to help to set the stage for your world through Elevate 2021 in the next several days. Number one, I think you need to be applauded for all of the effort and work that you put in through this very strange and extraordinary times. You've been living in a world of Zoom. We're still here, and the pathway out is not quite yet clear. I think we need to celebrate your work, your effort, your success, because if you think about what has happened, your world, like everyone else, was turned asunder, turned upside down, and you had to scramble to put in place the capabilities, the tools, the insight to help to manage very complex construction projects. Someday we will be back to the world in which we are interacting in person, and you will continue to be applauded for your efforts. You need to be relentlessly focused on innovation, the future and trends, and what you need to do. But we are still in this virtual world for a little bit of time to come. And I want you to think about three things. What were we talking about in the world of construction before COVID hit? How has COVID changed our universe? How has it shifted what we're having to deal with? And what are we faced with going forward? What can we learn from that in terms of what we need to do? Well, what have you been focused on? Obviously, you've been spending a lot of time in chasing efficiencies with the Ebuilder platform, putting in place these streamlined efforts to better manage your construction projects. You've been focused on relentless cost management, very complex projects, and pursuing the tools to help you manage the costs of these massive construction projects. You've been focused on reducing project surprise. Construction has become vastly more complicated over the last several years, and you're certainly chasing the platforms to help you to better manage that. Improving budget controls. As these projects become more complex, you've had to put in place the capabilities to better manage what you can do. And certainly the goal with a lot of this is how do we build a platform to centralize a lot of this information so that it is accessible to everyone. Look, what you're really trying to do is eliminate this process where we are managing multi-billion-dollar projects through spreadsheets. We know that is not a good pathway into the future. We know that is not going to give us what we need to continue to manage the sophistication of these projects. And so with that, you've been working on streamlining workflow. How can we chase these efficiencies, streamline workflow, eliminate paperwork, and do more in terms of more sophisticated project management so that at the end of the day, we have better project insight into what we need to do to continue to help our stakeholders take the project forward. All of this has happened in this very complicated Zoom world. Look, you know your ultimate goal is better project lifecycle management. You know, managing the entire building lifecycle from inception, from design, through construction, through maintenance, and perhaps eventual disassembly. Your goals have been laudable. Here's the challenge. You know what you're up against. Look, for years I've been talking about what I call the innovation killers, the innovation and creativity prevention department. You probably have this type of organization in your own organization. This is the department, the people who have developed an organizational sclerosis. They come up with every excuse that holds you back from trying to implement what you know needs to be implemented in order to move you forward. We know the excuses that these individuals will make. You can't do that because we've always done it this way. It won't work. It's doomed to fail. It's too complicated. It's too risky. These are the innovation killers which hold us back from trying to pursue what we need to do in terms of better construction management. And all of this is happening in the context in which the world of construction is becoming more complicated all the time. Look, I'm a futurist and I spend a lot of time talking about the future, talking about trends. And what better way to talk about the future and trends than to jump into my spaceship and take you into the world of what were we talking about in the world of construction before COVID hit? What were the big trends which were on the table? Well, you think about what the project managers have had to be dealing with in the world of construction. We've seen the rapid emergence of all kinds of new construction materials driven by fast-paced science. For example, wood-based construction, where we can put up facilities which are 6, 8, 10, 12 stories high based upon wood. We are seeing the emergence of all kinds of new construction materials. Look, we're seeing the relentless arrival of new construction methodologies, all kinds of high-tech driven methodologies to help us assemble on site, to help us manage complex projects, all kinds of new concepts in terms of what we can do in the construction process. We've seen the acceleration of robotics throughout the construction cycle. Automated bricklaying is coming to the industry extremely quickly. We're going to continue to see more of that. These are the trends I was talking about in the construction sector even before COVID hit. Advanced concepts, the 3D printing of buildings, the ability to utilize sophisticated capabilities to actually 3D print construction materials on site. Smart buildings. We know the projects that we are putting in place. We know the buildings that we are putting in place. We know the infrastructure we are putting in place is becoming more sophisticated, more connected, driven by intelligent Internet of Things connectivity. And this changes the entire scope of what we are doing with our construction projects. We know that we are dealing with a world of connected construction. That is everything you are doing to develop this connected world in which we achieve all of those things in terms of better workflow, better project management. This has come to drive a lot of what we're doing. Not only that, we are seeing the arrival of virtualization concepts, augmented reality, virtual reality, all kinds of leading edge tools and capabilities to help us better design, conceive, manage, and put in place these sophisticated buildings we are meant to construct. There's even more which is happening. You're hearing a lot about smart contracts, blockchain, all the sophisticated new tools to manage the payment process and other parts of the construction process. Modular construction, acceleration of prefabrication methodologies. This is your world. You are putting in place sophisticated project management tools at the same time that you are dealing with an absolute tsunami of trends, even drone technology, sophisticated technologies which help us to understand and get better insight into our entire project management. My 28-year-old son is a drone pilot for a construction company, and we are seeing the emergence of all kinds of fascinating new capabilities. This was our world before COVID hit. And then COVID hits and everything changes. I want you to think about what has happened in the last 16 months as COVID entered our world and became something that really accelerated the rate of digital transformation. I've been asking some folks, who drove your digital transformation? Was it your CEO, your CIO, your CTO? No, it was COVID-19. I want you to think about how much COVID has changed the scope and speed of our universe in terms of the simple aspect of the speed of change. So what comes next post-COVID? Well, everything has changed. The world has become faster. We know that everything has accelerated, and you are now dealing with vastly different circumstances from what you were dealing with 16 months ago. Think about how quickly the world of construction changed. All of a sudden, you had absolutely overnight acceptance of cloud-based construction concepts. You'd been talking about acceptance of these new technologies for quite some time, and all of a sudden everybody accepted it literally overnight. You had to test your discovery. You had to test your disaster recovery plans. You had sudden new project management concepts and procedures driven by the necessity of the virtual workforces that were put in place. You had a sudden need for better forecasting because there was a lot of volatility with fiscal forecasts and budgets, and spending plans were all thrown out of whack because of what happened. You had to manage a lot of very complicated social distancing issues on site so that safety and security compliance issues became critically important. with everything you did with project management. All of this was happening in the context in which supply chains were broken. Supply chains were challenged. We were in a situation in which scarcity of product became a real issue, and with that came cost inflation. All of a sudden you had more complex project management issues because costs were going through the roof due to broken supply chains. You were in a situation in which you were dealing with sudden labor scarcity, driven by social distancing, driven by COVID, but also by the fact that people didn't want to work, or there was not the availability of very specialized skills for a bunch of reasons. You witnessed a lot of shifting project priorities. This became part and parcel of the reality of your day. You saw the sudden acceptance of new concepts that you talked about for quite some time. For example, mobile-based site inspection became a regular part of your routine. Even digital virtual handshakes, where you develop this new form of trust, interactive relationships with individuals driven by virtual necessity. This was all happening in the context in which we saw the sudden acceleration of really big ideas. For example, the concept of telehealth, virtual hospitals. We talked about that for years, and all of a sudden it became very real because we had to suddenly change the nature of our institutions. And a lot of space rethinking. People talking about office hoteling, for example, and what happens to the workplace of the future, which has a definite impact on your future capital spending plans. The virtual acceptance of virtual architecture concepts occurred faster. Suddenly everybody was willing to accept this virtual stuff that we've been talking about literally for years, and a lot of commercial real estate market volatility because, as I've said through COVID, we don't know exactly where we're going, but we are making great time. This happening in the context for those of you in the government sector where you're dealing with reduced or volatile tax revenue. This is why you need to be applauded for everything you've done through the last 16 to 18 months, because this has been one of the most tremendously complicated times in our entire existence. Well, let's get back in the spaceship and think about what has happened with COVID. And what are some of the new trends that have emerged through this period of time? What COVID did was it put a rocket ship, it lit rocket fuel on the speed of change that surrounds us. And here's what you are dealing with going forward. All infrastructure all the time. There's going to be a flood of money, new projects, massive new projects, which you are going to have to manage as a result of the infrastructure bill, which is coming forward. We're going to see a lot of discussion about space repurposing. We don't know exactly what is going to happen with the workforce. We don't know exactly what is going to happen with the organizations for whom we are supporting massive projects, but I think we will see a lot of repurposing of space. We are going to see a lot more focus of the circular economy. How do we, take into account the environmental impact of our construction projects and do a lot more in terms of what we are doing for ecological and environmental management. We're going to see a lot of concepts around rethinking the very nature of the building. Hospitals, for example, are going to go virtual, where they are no longer defined specifically by the walls of the building, but by the reach of the hyper-connected patient management tools which go beyond the hospital, and that's going to have an influence on what we do from an architectural design perspective. We're going to continue to see relentless skills issue. The challenge in construction is, with all of this technology and new concepts and new ideas coming into place, the skills that we need to know, that we need to do the job are becoming more complex all the time. I think we will obviously continue to see widespread virtual teamwork throughout every single aspect. We're eventually going to leave Zoom land for some of the things that we do, but we are going to continue to rely upon it for a lot of what we do, and that's going to have an impact on us going forward. Acceleration of CAD comes with that, and all things virtual. I think we have discovered the power that comes from use of sophisticated virtual tools for planning, for management, for everything we do. And this is why your future is full of opportunity. Combine that with the fact that we're getting a lot of generational acceleration as new individuals. This high-tech, young person weaned on technology comes into the construction industry, and they're going, where do I plug in? I want to do everything in a virtual fashion. We're continuing to see the arrival of all kinds of new materials, solar windows, which generate power simply by being a window. You think about what is happening here. Your world is being driven by fast-paced change, And you're doing that in the concept in which you're trying to pursue full building lifecycle management throughout the design process, the build, the operate, and the maintain stage. And you're doing all of this in the context of a whole series of trends which are rapidly changing your world. And to make it even more complex, you're doing this in which we've got a lot of budget uncertainty, some budgets being cut back as a result of a decrease in government revenue combined with massive spending with the infrastructure bill. This is why everything you're talking about in terms of digital transformation is so darned important. This isn't just a word, that people like us use to define a world which is, really cool and really fun. What we need to do is we need to ensure that we put in place a platform that can support a complex, volatile, complicated, fast-moving industry. And that is the world of construction today. That is what is happening. And that is what you are really doing with everything you're doing with the platform you're putting in place. What you are really doing here is you're putting in place an infrastructure for the future, which will support this vaster, more complex, volatile, fast-changing world of construction. That's what you need to be thinking about through the next several days. I got to get the right camera angle here. That's what you need to be thinking about through the next several days with Elevate 2021, as you have the opportunity to understand what comes next, what do you need to do about it, and how do you plan for a world in which the future belongs to those who are fast. That's it for now. Futurist Jim Carroll from the Virtual Broadcast Studio.